How we doing, coin traders? What's going on? Thanks for joining me for the show, looking at stacks STX on that ticker. Very, very nice couple of days here for stacks, especially with a lot of nice upside volume. And so being in this kind of longer term downtrend ever since we were in our peaks at the end of March here on this trend, long downtrend, especially getting stuck up on the exponential moving averages as resistance, holding these big levels between the 12 and 26. Finally, very nice breakthrough with follow through and a lot of increasing volume. Exactly what we want to see when we do look at trend changes, especially when we talk about taking out these previous resistances and highs for the trend. So despite setting a low, blowing past a lot of these big resistance points and previous price highs, in addition to actually seeing that follow through like we talked about, and also blowing through these exponential moving averages and seeing a very nice setup and cross above. So even if we look at the 50 period, for example, on the current move, we're looking at an upside move on top of this 50 period at about 7.5%. So a lot more likely in this instance to actually maintain support on top of this level and actually see the backtest in confirmation instead of just an immediate rejection and follow through to the downside like we see in false breakouts here. So very nice setup here, especially like we mentioned, very nice break on top of a lot of these levels of previous closing resistance. So the candle yesterday did get stuck up at this level and also stuck up at the 50, but the follow through with this heavy volume does confirm a lot more of that strength and upside move, likely in this instance, pretty much setting the pace and tone for a reversal on this longer term downtrend. And so if we actually go ahead and flip over into the weekly chart here, big thing to note on the current candle, and although we still have about 4 days left on this current weekly candle, just the big thing here is that not only are we breaking back on top of the 12 period exponential moving average, in addition to the 26 here, which has been a very, very relevant line, despite having also held support in between the 26 and the 50 period EMA. The big thing just to note right now, and like we said, still 4 days left, so the volume's probably going to be expected to increase a little bit more too. But the thing is just that for this magnitude of the body of the weekly candle, especially like we said, with this volume coming in, it's actually a pretty good sign showing that there's not a lot of selling resistance that is being stocked up in the order book. So that way a little bit of minimal volume can actually see this big giant move despite crashing through plenty of these resistance points, especially like we said, confirming support and then confirming 3 weeks of resistance on this 26 period exponential moving average for this weekly chart. So hopefully we can get a maintaining of the price level a little bit higher as well, despite having a little bit of an overbought conditions on some of the shorter terms. Still looking pretty good. And obviously in the next 4 days, if we can't print this candle to have that close, it's going to be another good sign, especially since stacks STX has been holding this 12 period exponential moving average ever since finally breaking below it back on the 22nd of April candle. So for example, if we actually hide the 26 and 50 and we do zoom out a little bit, you can see how relevant this is. So ever since we actually had big periods of resistance for stacks, resistance, finally broke bullish on top of this 12 period exponential moving average on the weekly. And then we have just been back testing it, confirming it as resistance on all these tests and attempts until finally holding it despite big lower shadows, finally breaking it. So if we can actually see a very nice rally and close on top of this exponential moving average, will be a very good sign, especially if we can get some follow through on the weekly as well. But up overhead, especially on this weekly, going to be plenty of resistances that we're looking at up overhead, since like we said, a lot of these lower shadows, specifically going to be looking at for the close on this weekly for stacks here, going to be looking at 2.5868. So from current price levels, that would be a price gain of about 8%. And so that is kind of the expected range and zone that we would likely in the shorter term consolidate on if we do in fact fail to break and fail to see a follow-on week here as well for the bulls to push prices above this resistance level, since we know that it has been, like we said, huge support based on a lot of these long lower shadows. So a very, very big support point finally broke. So now we are expecting resistance to come in. But like we said, very much in favor of a nice trend change. And especially the thing about this weekly chart here, especially compared to a lot of other altcoins, is just how bullish the exponential moving averages still are. And so one of the things we look for, especially when we have price rallies, is a widening gap between all these exponential moving averages, which is exactly what we saw on the peak. And typically we do get that, especially when we are so far air gapped from the price on top of the 12-period EMA. No, eventually at some point a backtest and a test of all of these exponential moving averages is coming. So the fact that we actually pulled back and still maintained support on top of the 50-period EMA still maintains this in a very bullish formation, and we haven't had any sort of cross at all bearish. And usually for a lot of altcoins right now, we have seen the 12 cross below the 26, and in a lot of cases, a full bearish flip as well on the weekly chart. So to still see this type of chart formation set up, where we actually have maintaining of this trend as well as maintaining of these exponential moving average formation, a very, very good sign for the longer term here for STX. And especially since we have been holding higher lows compared to our previous period of consolidation. And so even looking at Fibonacci's from the bottom to the top big retracement, still maintaining support on top of the 61.8%. And then if we actually want to look at this from the most recent lows on the previous trend, holding on top of the 78.6 at 177, very good sign as well. So still going to be on our way now to actually see a little bit higher highs, especially since some of these lower supports and exponential moving averages have been maintained here. Now looking at some technicals for the weekly, specifically want to look at stochastic RSI here, just because we've kind of been smashed up almost right at the zero line here for a long period. So for about a month now, we were actually smashed up extremely low, and just now looking like we're starting to get this nice bullish cross. If we actually look at the last time this oscillator was below the 20 line, and we actually did get our bullish cross on top of that, as you can see, very nice upside directional move did play out after that. So I would expect some sort of similar type pattern and play out to happen, especially after being smashed, like we said, so close to the zero line for so long. Would expect a little bit more upside pressure and direction out of this indicator as we do get a little bit more price action heading north. Now dropping down into the 12-hour chart here, and the thing that's extremely good and bullish that we actually haven't seen since hitting our trend high is just the fact that we're actually now looking at almost an intersection of the 12 period over the 50 period. So on this very nice strong move, a lot of nice bullish volume like we've talked about. Now seeing this complete rollover right now, and especially since the 50 is going to be more laggy, we would expect the 26 to be coming across bullish on top of the 50 period here shortly, especially if prices do maintain. But like we talked about, we are going to be upside facing some resistance points based off of previous resistance, as well as heart lines for previous consolidation that we're looking at, previous support, and then a big period of previous support. So plenty of resistance up overhead, and especially with this type of strong upside move, with nice volume, we are going to be expecting a period of consolidation, or at least some breathing room here coming up soon, especially as we do approach some of these big resistance points. And even if we pull up volume profile visible range, VPVR, you can just see how big this zone of mass is here, pretty much coming in from about 250 all the way up until the low $3 level. So a big struggle point, and that's kind of one of the reasons why we actually would like to see a little bit of consolidation, some breathing room, potentially even a pullback, testing previous resistances as supports, and then allowing the bulls to gather some strength, just because there's so much effort that's going to be needed to plow through this overall zone. But the good thing about that is when that actually does happen, that will be a good thing for the bulls, because when we do actually have a lot of periods of sideways trading, chop, and resistance in a zone, that does mean very strong support once we actually do retrace and see a pullback and another test of that level, which typically does end up pushing prices back higher. So overall, I think this is a very nice pattern and setup to see, especially as we do look at Bitcoin having a little bit more of a bullish setup as well. And I think we'll probably get this type of bullish action to play out for the rest of the crypto space as well, especially as a lot of these bullish formations keep stacking up across the overall crypto space. So a little bit more of that hope that we're looking for when we think that the last couple months of pullback is probably going to finally be exhausted here, and we're likely and skeptical and hopeful that we are going to be heading back in the upside directional movement, because a lot of bottom signs have been coming in across crypto, and especially it does start to seem like the last few months has been a complete drain on sentiment, and it is ready to be returning here coming up. But overall, definitely would love to hear everyone's thoughts, questions, comments, issues, disagreements, predictions, all that stuff down in the comment sections below. Do love getting back to each and every one of you. But otherwise, that is going to go ahead and wrap up the show for today on Stacks STX on that ticker. Do appreciate all the continued love and support. If you did enjoy the video, please hit the thumbs up, like, and subscribe if you have not done so just yet to stay updated on all this type of crypto content. Feel free to reach out over on Twitter or X at coin_trades is the handle over there. But that is going to do it for now, though, so stay safe, take care, coin traders, and I'll catch you back in the next video.